All right, y'all, it's official. We're getting a Zelda movie. We got to talk about it. We got to unpack it. I don't even know where to begin. I have so many thoughts, and I could spend a lot of time speculating and talking about what ifs. And I guess I just want to share some thoughts. I've seen some videos from the community and seen a lot of discussion. I've seen a lot of doom and gloom, and I guess I just kind of want to start off by saying, like, it's great news. As a Zelda fan, I'm so excited to get to see these stories in a new way, to know that they're being developed at the very least, and just the reality of film production. And I hope that this is encouraging. Is that these are very early days. There's a couple details we know, like the producer, like the writer, and the director. And I mean, I assume that the producer is not going to change, but details like the writer and director could. Like it's not unheard of for these films early in development that might change around a little bit as they're actually figuring out the vision of what the Legend of Zelda movie is going to be, as they think about what they want to make and what they have to express and who they want behind it. Those are details that could change. We don't know that. I guess like it's I want to just go ahead and voice that like I don't want people to freak out about what the writers written, what the directors made, because those are things that may not last, and maybe they will, but who knows? But I guess I just want to kind of like, the cat's out of the bag. We have some things that have been announced, but I really, like I said, I think this is great news. I'm a Zelda fan. I've been a Zelda fan for so long. I've always wanted a Zelda movie, and I guess I believe live action really is the way to go to capture what you know what stirs my soul about the series. You know what I'm saying? Because I guess that's the thing is like when it comes to adaptations, especially of my favorite stories and franchises, you can have a conversation about how do you adapt it strictly. How do you make a safe version? A safe movie. What is the safe bet to make there, right? You can have that conversation. Um, and I guess like I do think that they're gonna play it safe a lot for this movie. They played the Mario movie safe. I think a Zelda movie will be played safe a lot too. Um, but I guess like when it comes down to it, as a fan, I know there's a lot of fans that just like they want Zelda on screen, and they wouldn't mind it, looking exactly the way the games look. I know a lot of people want animation, and for me, it's just with this question of live action or animation, it's like I'd rather it be different. I'd rather it be a new perspective. There's so much that live action can provide with the richness, the detail, especially the acting. And I guess that's what really excites me about live action. It's not just the realism and immersion, because I love the expressiveness that a cartoon world can have that we've seen in the Zelda series with games like, Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I love that cartoonish atmosphere, but I'm really excited by the prospect of, well, let's bring some real actors into that world, especially for the depth of characters. When it comes to Link and Zelda and Ganondorf, especially having performances behind those characters. I mean, we've had voice acting for Zelda and Ganondorf already for these new games, but I guess I'm really excited to finally just have a product where we know they're going to have to make some decisions about how to bring Link to life. And I know people are scared about that. Link hasn't had a voice actor in so long. I think since the CDI games or the Zelda cartoon. And I like the Zelda cartoon. I guess that's my confession. First of all, I think it's really charming. I like Link's personality in that series. And it's like I don't necessarily want that for the movie. I mean, there's so much of Zelda that's come out since the cartoon. Is that I want it to be inspired by an amalgamation of all the games that have come since. But I guess in so many of these games, it seems like Nintendo is afraid to give Link a personality, and I'm excited by the prospect of no matter what, if we're getting a Zelda movie, Link's gonna have an actor. Hopefully, he has dialogue and voice lines. I want Link to talk. I want Link to talk in the games, because like I know it's scary, and it's like this is a character that's existed for so long, and I think it's safer if they make it a new iteration of Link. If they do it in the games, I think it's safer to do like a, kind of a reboot in the way that Breath of the Wild was a reboot. Give give his character some voice lines and kind of say, yeah, it's a new version of Link, and this one talks. I'm excited for the movie to just kind of make some character decisions, because Link, what we know of Link is he's kind of an enigma. He's so many things. He's funny, he can make jokes with all these dialogue boxes that we have, right? We know that he's verbal. We know that he can be articulate. We know that he can crack jokes. In Breath of the Wild, he has a lot of jokes responding to people. Sometimes he'll make puns, but he can also be serious. And Zelda describes him as being very quiet. Um, she provides a reason for him being mute, right? But that's only indicative of his relationship with Zelda. And I think that that's kind of what's cool about characters, right? And especially when you get to play with them. And this is what I'm excited about for the movie, is you can show how Link acts differently around different people, right? He may present this kind of like this knight, right? Who's a little more quiet and reserved to Zelda. He wants to be respectful, you protect the royal family, all that stuff. But when he's around other adventurers, right? Which, and I'm sure there will be other characters, right? I'm excited to see his relationship with, whatever the stand-in is for, the Goron chieftain. I imagine there will be relationships that he has with races from across the kingdom, right? And then we'll see some of that, or with other knights. And I do imagine he'll have a more playful side. I mean, that's who Link is to me. And I mean, ultimately, I think it is about courage. And if you can find someone who can embody that courage and that spirit of the hero, then I think we'll be all set. And I guess that like I want to bring that up as well. This idea of Link being a hero and this being a hero story. We know Avi Arad is producing the movie, and he has a background in producing hero stories. And Link is not a superhero, but if we examine the story of The Legend of Zelda from a hero's journey lens, like I think that that provides a basis for the movie that I think can work. And I think about movies, I mean, especially like Star Wars, man. Like as a Zelda fan, like to me, the blueprint of like the best case scenario for what guides the process behind bringing this movie to life is thinking about the Star Wars movies. Those are hero stories, and of course the way that they use saber battles, right? It's like a character with a sword, right? That kind of swashbuckling atmosphere, and the way that it handles politics and history and religion. And Zelda handles all that as well, right? It has its own story of its kingdom that falls and can be corrupted, and there are these people seeking power that are taking over the kingdom, right? And there's a relationship with the politics there that I'd love to see in a Zelda movie. It's the way it handles religion with the story of the Triforce, its relationship with the different goddesses, the goddess Hylia, the golden goddesses, these very important figures. I mean, religion is a huge aspect. If the Triforce is going to be important to the story, it's a very important religious artifact. It's kind of the equivalent of the Ark of the Covenant there. And I even think about Ganondorf. Like to me, as a filmmaker, I am an indie filmmaker, and I kind of have my own perspective of the stories I would love to tell in the Legend of Zelda series. I think about Ganondorf as, I could see him being, he's presented as a warlord, but I could see him also kind of being this religious zealot in a way, right? Leading his people to, their promised land. And, you could have him taking over the kingdom of Hyrule reframed kind of through that lens, that like acquiring the land that was promised to them, this land that is actually green and, kind of getting out of the desert, out of their exile, right? I mean, I see that story there. And I don't know. I guess I'm just excited through, the same way that I felt about the Mario movie is by the nature of just making a movie that forces them to make creative decisions that, haven't been made in the games, just because now you're doing a narrative piece and it's all about the story, and it's not just an excuse for gameplay. Now the medium is storytelling. These are characters, and if you're going to bring in actors, especially live action actors, you're going to have to make decisions about who these characters are and what their relationship is and what their personality is. And I think that's exciting. I think that's incredibly exciting, and that means that there's going to be a little bit of a push and pull now with the series itself after this movie comes out, and I'm excited by that because there's so much that I love about Zelda, and I've wanted more depth from these characters for a while. And maybe the movie's not going to get that. Maybe it's not going to do a good job of all that. Maybe it's gonna cheap out, and it's not going to tell a great story. These characters aren't going to have depth. It's just going to be safe bets. Link's not going to be recognizable. He's just going to be a typical hero's journey protagonist with one-liners and nothing lands. There's jokes, but it's like Marvel style humor. Maybe that's what we're going to get. Who knows? But I'm hopeful that if it can be made with creative intent, and it's like, to me, I don't need it to look just like the games brought to life. I don't even want that. I want it to do something new, so that in making this movie, the games can do something new too. Because that's, I guess, like that's what I love about the Zelda series is that it does something new every time, and it can return to what I think works. It can return to what I love about the series, but ultimately, what I love most is that it can change and it's comfortable with changing, and because it's inspired by the same thing, and that's what I'm hopeful for the movie. I'm hopeful that the movie doesn't feel um like it's being held hostage by these conventions. I want the movie to be able to do new things, go in new directions, have a new art style. Right? Like I want all of that. That's what I want for the Zelda series. I don't want to feel held back by anything. And I think Zelda is at its best when it changes, and it's all inspired by the same thing. And that's what I hope. My hope for the movie is that I think about what Zelda inspires within me, what inspires me about the series. I think about that feeling of the call to adventure, but I think it's also about like who Link is. If you really want to ask who is Link and what is Zelda about, I think it's a story where you play as this character and you help people. And I think about all the interactions that Link has with different NPCs or the dungeons themselves. Usually it's about doing something for people, for a community, and there's an impact that you have as Link in which you better the world, and through a very broad sense, through the dungeons. Maybe you're saving them from an ecological disaster. There's something dramatic that you're saving them from. But then with these NPCs, there's all these side quests where you listen to them, you make them feel heard, and you respond to their individual needs. Maybe they just want a couple fireflies, and you bring them those fireflies. You hear their needs, and you find whatever ingredients someone needs to they're not feeling well, and you bring them ingredients where they can no longer be sick. There's all these individual needs that they have that you can respond to as well. And I feel like that's the essence of Zelda is and that's it's that heroism. And it's a very personal journey of hearing people out individually as a microcosm of this kingdom's journey, where Link is trying to rid it of evil as a whole, right? And make these big changes in the world at the same time. And I feel like that's who Link is. And if we can show all of that, then that's what Zelda's about. All of that framed by this fantasy world, framed by these politics of this kingdom, framed by fantasy. All of that is framing, I think, as long as it stirs your soul in just that, in that telling a story of what it means to be a hero. I feel like that's what Zelda's about. And I don't know, maybe that's simple, and maybe there's so many other things that Zelda is about to me. But I think if the movie can capture that, then I'll be excited about it, and I'm hopeful that it can. I just think about like Avi Arad, that producer, at his best, and some of these superhero movies at their best. It doesn't have to be, I think like the MCU has burned so many people out just in telling these hero stories that are so formulaic, that don't feel like they're led by a vision. But I think about superhero movies at their best, and I think about the Nolan Batman trilogy. I think about the first Richard Donner Superman movie, and I think about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. And those are movies which are incredibly personal, to show all of those individual personal connections that really delve into the philosophy of what it means to be a hero and who Peter Parker is, right? And telling his story with extreme passion. And I guess I just know that so many people are passionate about The Legend of Zelda and how it's affected their lives and the perspective that it's given them. Lord knows I feel that way, and I care so much for the series. And I just hope that this movie can be made in the same way that those Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were. It's an incredibly big franchise. There's going to be a lot of cooks in the kitchen. There's going to be fights, I'm sure, about the development of this movie, just because so many people care about Zelda and the fans care so much. But I really want to be hopeful and optimistic. We don't know enough to be pessimistic, in my opinion. And that's kind of why I'm making this video, because I really believe we don't know enough to be pessimistic. And I just kind of want to voice this, that like, I'm excited about this movie. And, it's just like I said, like I'm an indie filmmaker myself. I have a lot of my own thoughts about what I would want out of a Zelda movie. And, this was just kind of a rambling video where I just wanted to kind of talk about a Zelda movie as a whole and kind of unpack some things. But I think I'd like to kind of share some of my more specific thoughts, structure the video a little bit more. This was very much a rambly video, but I just wanted to make it to have this discussion. But I think I would like to share some of my thoughts, because I've made outlines. I've written scripts for what I would want out of a potential Zelda movie, just as something that I care about as a filmmaker, as a writer. Those are things that I want to express, and I've just kind of like had my own versions of what I would want out of a Zelda movie. So I would like to kind of share that with y'all now that we know there's one being developed, and we kind of have a conversation about different expectations that we have, what we would want, what is the bare minimum, how close do we want to follow the games? Because I feel like there's a lot of freedom. I feel like there's a lot of creative freedom as long as they're true to the spirit of the games. And I'm optimistic, just excited to see what they make. But all this to say, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. See you in the next video.